Okay. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Let us have the sincere intentions, lillahi ta'ala. Today we're going to start at and end, inshallah, with the sins of the private parts. So, the author said to commit adultery. So, among the sins of the private parts are to commit adultery or fornication. That is to insert the glans penis into the vagina unlawfully. Explanation. The meaning of zina is to insert the glans penis into the vagina. The glans penis is the part that appears when one is circumcised. It is enough to insert that part in the vagina for zina to take place. If one does that, then he will be committing the enormous sin of zina. Also, it is prohibited to insert this part in the anus of a male or female. This is also an enormous sin. We are talking here about the the anus of other than one's wife or the like. Now, if one does that with his own wife, it's haram, it's prohibited, but the severity of that sin does not reach the level of doing it with someone else. But in both cases, it is haram. In the religious rules, if one who commits zina is a free person, one deserves to be punished by 100 lashes and exiled for a year. That is, they exile him, they take him out of the town in which he committed zina for a year. If the person who commits zina is a slave, then his punishment is half of that, so 50 lashes and a half a year of exile. That is, this would be the punishment if this person who committed zina is not muhsan. Now, al muhsan is a person before committing zina, he had sexual intercourse within a valid marriage. So, if someone was married and while married he had sexual intercourse with his wife, even once, if after that this person commits zina, then this person would be called a muhsan. His punishment is different than the punishment we mentioned before. The punishment that we mentioned previously pertains to the one who is not a muhsan. So this person, he did not have sexual intercourse in a valid marriage contract. So it does not matter if this person is still married or not, right? So the non-muhsan has never ever been married. He never ever had a valid marriage contract. Let's say that. He never had a valid marriage contract because that is different than what we sometimes considered married in the United States. Okay, so now the muhsan, it does not matter if this person is still married or not. If this person had sexual intercourse in a valid marriage and after that he commits zina, his punishment would be stoned until death if he is a free person. If he is a slave, he would not be punished by being stoned, whether he had sexual intercourse before that in marriage or not. In all cases, the punishment of the slave is always 50 lashes and a half a year of exile. So, in the rules of the religion, this is not a punishment that everyone can carry out. This is a job specifically for the ruler. If I know, for example, about someone who commits zina, it's not permissible for me to bring this person and then we can flash him, for example, right? This is not permissible. This is something that the ruler does. As for sodomy, the punishment differs, and so, I know sodomy is not okay. Anyways, as for sodomy, the punishment differs depending upon the situation of the one who does the sin versus the one who receives the sin. So the sodomizer versus the sodomized. The same punishment of zina applies to the sodomizer. So either he is a muhsan or not. The same rules apply. As for the sodomized person, his punishment is 100 lashes and 1 year of exile if he is free. If he is a slave person, then 50 lashes and a half a year of exile. Again, this is the punishment in all cases for the slave. Again, the judge is the one who carries this out. For the judge, the act to act on the punishment of zina, that act itself has to be confirmed. If it is not confirmed, he does not treat this person as if he committed zina. For the punishment to be carried out, four people, four males specifically, witnesses, they have to see the actual act of sexual intercourse. That is for trustworthy Muslims. So trustworthy has a lot of definitions in that. One of them is that this person, he's not known to be a liar. He does not lie. This person, he applies the rules of the religion. This person does not cheat people, right? Even if I'm looking at this definition and I'm trying to apply it to the Muslims today, even on myself, I probably not be considered trustworthy because I have obviously committed sins. So that's, and I'm a woman, so my testimony would still not be valid. So four trustworthy Muslim men. And they have to actually witness the act, that is the penis entering the vagina. So they need to be four. Two of them is not enough. And if two of them see a girl, a woman, walking to a hotel, that's not enough. If four of them saw both people under a blanket, that's not enough. So they have to actually see the act for male, upworthy, trusty people. At the time of our Master Omar, four upright, trustworthy people were in a place, and in front of them, there was a shelter or something like that. And it either had a curtain of like a window or even a door. So the window moved the curtain. So wind, sorry. So the wind moved the curtain. And so they saw a man in which they know commit zina. They saw the actual act. So they went to the Khalifa, to Umar, and they told him, we saw so and so commit zina. Three of them were certain about it. The fourth, when he wanted to testify, he said, as if it was so and so happened, but I'm not really sure. So, because he said, I am not sure, Umar told the other three, take back your testimony. Otherwise, you're accusing a man by zina without having four trustworthy, upright witnesses that would testify for that. So, i.e., you don't have evidence. Two of them took it back. They took back their testimony, but one refused. He said, I know what I saw. But he could have just taken back his testimony, but he didn't. He refused. So, because he didn't take back his testimony, Omar, he had to punish him with the punishment that we mentioned in the previous class because he accused a person with zina without having four trustworthy witnesses to confirm that. So even claiming somebody commits zina without having proper proof is a punishment. So um, the person who committed zina, they obviously can admit to committing zina. And then, the person who was accused, they wouldn't get the punishment. But again, if someone nowadays commits zina, because in most of the countries, they don't apply the rules of the Sharia law pertaining to the punishments. So, no, what can we do these days? It's just we advise a person to leave out what he's doing. I guess to try to work out social events to prevent this from happening, try to get married, to try to really work against his nest. There's so much online. I mean, it really goes a lot to it. So, yeah, may Allah protect this nation. The author said to have sexual intercourse with animals, even if they are one's own, and to masturbate by the hand of other than one's wife or female slave. Explanation. Among the sins of the private parts is to have sexual intercourse with an animal, even if one owns this animal. Allah said in Surah Al-Mu'minun, which means those who reserve their private parts for their wives or their female slaves are not sinful. So those who seek what is beyond that, they are sinful. So from this verse, it's clear that, having sexual intercourse with animals is prohibited. And to masturbate, if this does not take does not take place by a lawful, by the woman, basically, or by the wife, should I say, or the slave, then this is prohibited. These verses are enough as proof for those matters. So there's no point for someone to mention things from the Prophet ﷺ that are not confirmed from him to prevent people or to discourage the people from masturbating. So some people, they say that the one who masturbates, he comes on the day of judgment with his hand pregnant. The Prophet ﷺ did not say that. This verse is enough to establish the judgment. Along with that, with this particular sin, is that, homosexuality is also prohibited. And yeah. So the author said to copulate with the woman having menstrual or postpartum bleeding, or to copulate with the woman whose menstruation or postpartum bleeding terminated, but she has not performed her purification bath yet, or it was performed lacking the proper intention or lacking one of its conditions. So explanation. If someone has sexual intercourse with his wife while she is in her menses, or postpartum bleeding, they commit a sin by that, even if there was a barrier, which means even if the guy was wearing a condom. If the blood stops, it's also haram to have sexual intercourse before taking ghusl, right? That's the purification bath. Or the blood stops, she takes a bath, but she does not have the intention for ghusl. Her husband is not permitted to have sexual intercourse with her yet. Or let's say she takes a bath with the proper intention, but she didn't do all of the conditions. She's lacking any of the conditions that are necessary for the validity of the bath. That is ghusl. So in brief, if the wife is in her menses or in her postpartum bleeding, it's not permissible to have sexual intercourse with her. And after that, after if it terminates, it's not permissible to have sexual intercourse with her until she takes a valid ghusl. However, if the woman is in the state of menses or postpartum bleeding, it is permissible for her husband to enjoy her body except the part which is between her navel and her knees. So, mm, so obviously other than sexual intercourse, as indicated in the hadith narrated by Abu Dawud and others. So there is a saying within the Shafi'i school that the husband is permitted to enjoy all of her body of this menstruating wife except having sexual intercourse. So that includes what's between the navel and the knee. The first saying is the famous saying in the Shafi'i school, but there are other sayings as well. Even what's between the navel and the knee is permitted to be enjoyed with other than having sexual intercourse. And of course, with other than contaminating oneself with najasa, the blood. The author said to uncover one's unlawful nakedness in front of those who are prohibited to look at it, or to disclose one's unlawful nakedness while alone without a reason. So explanation. It's prohibited for one to cover their aura. If in the session there is a person who is prohibited from seeing his or her aura. So if someone is alone, it's prohibited for him to uncover the private parts with no excuse. If there is a need for that, then it's permissible. So for example, if one wants to change clothes, cool off, or take a shower, it's permissible to uncover these parts. Again, only with a need. Without a need, it's not permissible. But don't be troubled if you hear someone say that it's not permissible to uncover what is between the navel and the knee if one is alone except for an excuse. Right. You might hear it's not permissible to uncover the private parts if one is only alone without an excuse. So for someone they can uncover the thigh while he was alone. For some, the thigh has the same judgment as the private parts. Again, there is a difference of opinion among the schools. So even some imams said it's permissible for the man to uncover his thigh before the people. And one of the followers of the companions, his name is Atat. He is one of those who said that. He was the sheikh of Abu Hanifa. And Abu Hanifa said, I did not see any man who has more knowledge in al-fiqh than Ata. But most of the scholars said that this is prohibited. So the author said to face the Qibla or turn one's back on it while urinating or defecating without placing a barrier in front of one, except if this takes place in a location of urination and defecation. So that is in the place prepared for that purpose. Explanation. If someone was in an open space, one is not allowed to face al-Qibla or turn one's back towards the Qibla. If one was urinating, if one was urinating or defecating. That is, whether one is urinating or defecating, it is prohibited for one to face the Qibla or turn one's back to it, except if there is a barrier. So the valid barrier, in this case, is something which has a height of 2/3 of a cubic meters away from this person. So this is what Bukhari said, and others narrated that, in which the Prophet ﷺ said, which means do not face the Qibla or turn your back away from it while you are urinating or defecating. Rather face the east or the west. So when the Prophet ﷺ, he said that, he was talking about the inhabitants of the Medina, because the one who inhabits the Medina, if he was facing east or west, he would not be facing the Kaaba. And other places facing east or west is directly towards the Kaaba. So in a hadith, it was narrated that the Prophet feared, that is, he was worried, that some people would think that it's haram to face the Qibla or turn one's back to a Qibla in the prepared places for urinating or defecating. So he told some people to change that place where he used to defecate and urinate in a way that it would be towards a qibla, so the people would know that this is not prohibited. Of course, it's better not to do it, but it's not prohibited. If this is known, then, some people, they claim that it's prohibited for one to stretch one's legs towards the qibla. If it's permissible to face the qibla while urinating and defecating with a barrier or in a place that is prepared for that, so how would they say it's haram to stretch the legs towards the qibla? So it's very, very important to not overestimate oneself. Basically, in some hadith, if one interprets them relying on their own understanding, their own knowledge from reading them, in many cases, such person is misinterpreting those hadith out of the ignorance of the religion or the rules, or even not knowing enough, because some hadith, they complement each other. Right, so we need more than one hadith to kind of figure out what it was talking about. But some hadith, if some reads them alone, he might think that it's not permissible for one to sit while putting one leg over the other. But this hadith pertains to the one that sits in a way that his unlawful nakedness would be uncovered. So the author said to defecate on a grave. Explanation. Among the sins of the private parts is to urinate or defecate on a grave, such as narrated by the Prophet ﷺ, by Muslim, which means if one of you sits on a burning coal that burns his clothes and enriches his skin, this would be better for him than to defecate or urinate on the grave of a Muslim. The author said to urinate in a mosque, even if it was done in a container, or to urinate on an exalted object. Explanation. So it's prohibited for one to urinate in a mosque, whether one urinates on the floor or on the walls of the mosque, or in a container while he's inside the mosque. Even if he does not contaminate the mosque with urine, it is prohibited for him to urinate inside the mosque, even in a container. Now, if one does cupping in the masjid, they usually do it in the back of the day where they put a cup and then they suck the blood. Cupping inside the masjid is permissible if one does not contaminate the masjid with blood. So the blood is not just filthy, but there is a difference between the blood and the urine. The issue of the urine is more severe. This is why it's not permissible to urinate inside the masjid, even in a container. But it's permissible to do the cupping if one is safe from contaminating the mosque by doing that. Likewise, it's prohibited to urinate on something that is exalted religiously. For example, one does not urinate on a religious book if one knows that this is a religious text. And if he does that, he does it intentionally, then he blasphemes. The author said to neglect having circumcision after becoming pubescent. However, this is allowed according to Imam Malik. Explanation. If one is not circumcised before puberty, it's obligation upon this person to be circumcised. Allah revealed to the Prophet Ibrahim that he is obligated to make circumcision. And Ibrahim, alayhi salam, he was 70 to 80 years old when he got this. So immediately he did it, and he did it for himself because this is how the prophets are. They rush to obey Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. So circumcision is when one cuts off the skin that covers the tip of the penis, and this is for the men. Imam Malik said it's not an obligation to be circumcised, that it's a sunnah. So if you're doing da'wah and someone leaves out circumcision and you are worried that if you talk to him about this issue, then he's going to take a step back from the religion. So don't mention it, leave it out. Don't talk to him about this issue because according to Imam Malik, it's not an obligation, it's a sunnah. So some people, they might repel from Islam if you try to emphasize doing this thing. So be careful when you take wisdom in talking to people. And that looks like that is the end of the chapter. Again, if you guys have any questions, you can always ask me. Yeah, you can always ask me. Let us say tahleel. من الصلاة على النبي لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم بارك الله فيكم السلام عليكم